Today we look at navigation mesh bounds, at navigation modifiers and proxies. Most important thing is actually the navigation mesh bound volume. That is the one volume that you have to place as very first. You can make it visible with pressing P, and that is really these green boxes. The green boxes really are defining the area where navigation can happening. Only these areas will then actually be calculated if something can navigate in it or not. Meshes that are placed within that area will affect it normally, but you can switch it off. So I go here to the mesh, I say can ever affect navigation, switching it off. You see now the green area is actually going through it. So meaning from a navigation point of view, this is something that can be crossed. And the NPCs will try to cross it because they avoid the water here. But of course it has a collision, so that's not really possible, so not really helpful. But yeah, let's switch it on back again. But with that you can actually steer a bit what can be ignored for navigation or not, but then it should not have a collision naturally. So all these levels are kind of doing the same. They have NPCs running around. They get targets randomly between these pillars, these pink pillars. And we test different concepts of the navigation, how to steer it, how to make it look a bit more natural, and how to bridge between different areas of navigations. First of all, here is an example for the standard navigation, just navigating between these pillars and actually using tags to define what kind of targets are available. So here in these levels, the NPCs always have the same tag as the targets that are on their level. And then they actually ask a central blueprint to get them the new random target. That is one of the targets that is available, but not the target that they already are in. So this is the blueprint. It's a very small custom blueprint that is here singular in that level, and that only has one important function. That is the function really get target. So for get target, and each NPC is getting or is providing the tag that it has, and then this tag is collected in a map, and if it's not there, all the actors that are in the level with this tag are put into that map. And the moment an NPC comes, this map is queried for the next random target, and then there is some reporting time. That's it. Very simple, singular in that level, and that is for actually making the navigation happening. And of course, you have you have the different AI components like the behavioral tree to define getting one and going to that. Here is the special thing that here on authority always, that is where navigation is happening, that here switches off the avoidance that is normally switched on. The avoidance of the character movement will try to not run into the other NPCs. And if you filter here on the character movement component for avoidance, you see use RVO avoidance, that's normally standard. Here you can define avoidance group that are to be avoided or not. And you can define what is the configuration distance for the avoidance. Normally here it's 80 centimeters. So every other NPC will be avoided in that distance. If you switch it off without the avoidance, you will see that they are actually running into each other and are stuck for half a second or so, like here, for example. So they will not avoid each other, and it doesn't look very naturally. So that is something that normally should really be switched on. Here it's switched on, and you see it looks more natural really. They try to avoid each other with this distance of 80 centimeters, so it's a bit more fluent and it's a bit more natural looking than the other one. So that is this tag-based navigation and avoidance. Let's come to the cost of crossing something, or the cost of navigation, of moving through an area. You see here that both NPCs will try to avoid the water area. And in the last meter, they actually cannot avoid it, so they have to cross it, but they will try to minimize that. They do that because the water has a Nav Modifier volume defined with an area class, this BP Nav Area water, that will define that crossing the water costs energy, if you want. These area classes are quite simple. If you go here to the plugins, to the blueprints, and to the Nav Areas, you can define how many costs you want, just deriving from the navigation system.NavArea. And these are quite simple. They really just have a default cost, and they have an entering cost and a draw color to make it more visible on debug. That's it. So meaning here the NPCs know they have a zero cost crossing the standard areas, but the moment they enter this modifier area where the water is, they will have to pay that cost if you want, so it costs more energy. They will always try to minimize the energy to be spent, so they might actually cross your high cost area if the other alternative would be going a long way around it, but normally they will try to avoid it. So I have here my Nav Modifier volume with the area class water, and as this has cost in contrast to the standard volume, then they will really try to avoid that. That is how you can steer it. Here, of course, it's just this block of costs that we define. Okay, kind of swimming pool, so it works for this level, but it normally does not work because it would not look natural to have everything in these rectangles. So next question would be, can I do the same with splines and irregular shapes? That is what we want to do in the next round. So here's again the Nav Mesh Bounds volumes. That's the big one. That is always the area where actually navigation happens, that you can blend in with P, pressing P, and then you put as many modifiers into it as you need, and then these modifiers will then steer how the whole navigation happens. For example, what is preferred area and whatnot, and the NPCs will always try to go that way that costs them the less energy. Good, now let's look if we can do something with splines here. Same effect, we want to define a couple of high cost or avoidance areas, but we want to do that in a more natural way with splines so that we don't have these rectangles. What I did, I defined a very small blueprint here that only has here a spline defined. That is the spline that I use to define the form. And then we have this SplineNavModifier. This will take the first spline that it finds here in the components and will modify that accordingly as a Nav area. The Nav area class you can set here. So I did it here from obstacle, so actually something that cannot be crossed. But we could also put something in that in theory could be cost, but costs energy, like the water that we just showed. So using that, you will see the same effect because in theory it's crossable, but it costs more energy, so everybody goes here just around it. Yeah, we could of course also use a Nav area that has no cost. I defined that one here with the no cost, where the cost and the entering cost is actually 0. And then there is a Nav modifier area, but it will be ignored because the cost is the very same than crossing everything without a Nav modifier. So that's the way to use splines to organically shape how the NPCs will actually run through your level. And with the splines, you have much more options to make that more natural. So let's put it back here. And let's think about what could we build with something like that. And that would be the next level where we will try to build a path that the NPCs will use to cross the landscape and avoiding everything else. So you see here, and we have this nice grassy path, and the NPCs will try to stick on that simply because we defined a couple of modifiers left and right that are, for example, obstacles or high cost areas. So you see these Nav modifier volumes. Question is, how could you do that? We saw we can define it as a spline. There's also a way that's sometimes easier to do it via a brush system. For that, you go to the top view. Let's zoom in here. And here you see these two modifier volumes. One, let's say, north of the path, one south of the path. And we delete now one and we'll try to recreate it. So it's deleted. Then we go for the selection mode to the brush editing, select the pen. And with the pen, you have some settings, but you can keep them as standard normally. And now just click and press space. And just really move your mouse and press space as much as you need. So you will automatically create as many points as you need here around that area that we want to kind of filter out. Then we go back to the very first point and we have this structure that is here called just a brush. It's just a brush structure. But it's a volume, and as a volume I can convert it into most of the other volumes. So let's keep that selected. Oh no, I deselected it. So let's keep it selected. and filter here for convert. And you can convert the actor to, let's look for Nav Modifier, and here to Nav Modifier volume. Now it's a Nav Modifier volume, and of course, again, I can set an area class, and that could be, for example, obstacle or high cost, low cost area, whatever we need. Let's obstacle it here so that it really stick to the path and has no chance to derive from it. And, oh no, I did water, sorry. And let's have a look how that works. Same thing, yeah. In theory, they could go to the left because we defined it as water, so low cost, but still more cost than sticking to the path that has zero cost. And there you can really kind of, with these boundaries, can split out areas where your NPCs normally are not running, but they will run if there is a reason, for example, swallowing the higher cost. Here you have something called Nav Proxies. In this level, I have actually two Nav Mesh Bounds volumes that are not coupled to each other. So there's actually a gap in between these two. Here I have the one, and there's the other. So I have a meter or so of gap in between. And that cannot be crossed because navigation is not possible here. One way to cross it is using these Nav link proxies. Nav link proxies have always two sides, and between that sides you can define the direction where the NPCs can cross, and you can define the placement of the sides. So I deleted the right one, so meaning navigation back is not possible. They can cross the gap in one direction but cannot come back. So I go here to the adding area, add a nav link proxy, and I get a structure with these two small arms. And you have the point links left and the point link right. And between these point links, navigation is possible even if there's no nav bound volume. So what I do here, I can scale them and move them and then do whatever I want. And the target is to have one of these point arms on the one bound volume and the other one on the other one. And then the NPCs will just cross this space without needing anything else. So I just put in here. You see there's a point links 0 right and a point links 0 left. And between these, I can define the direction. I can say all direction, or I can really say, no, that's only single direction. So point links, index 0 I have here. Make it a bit bigger here. Open that up. Here you have left and right. You have their positions and you have the direction. At the moment it's both ways, but we want to do it from the right to the left. Area class you can also define, and then here we go. Yeah, the gap between the bound volumes can be crossed now with this link proxies, and that's an easy way to kind of bridge gaps that you have, or to really make sure that NPCs can only cross in one direction. You can actually modify that in a 3D area. So one of the arms here in this case is actually on the pillar that's here on the stairs, and the other one is down at the ground. And that will really allow the NPCs to simply jump down and bridge that gap directly without actually using the standard way to run back, what they normally would do. So here I also have this nav link proxy, but here the right arm is actually moved in space. You see you can move them around like standard objects, and they are moved here down to the bottom where the normal nav mesh bound volume is happening. So that will allow them to directly go from the higher area to the lower area, jumping down. And as we use here the game animation sample, you will actually see a very nice animation the moment they land. Yeah, and yeah, just really bridging the jump from the top to the bottom, looking quite naturally actually. So that is also something that makes it quite easy to allow navigation between things that normally cannot be navigated. So we saw the Nav Mesh Bounds volumes as the base for everything. Then we can modify it with the modifiers and modifier classes. And if you want to bridge something that is normally not something you can navigate, you can use the link proxies. I hope that helps for navigation, and yeah, as always, see you soon. Bye.